Right, so I've got my Revit file open, and I'm just going to go back to the AutoCAD file, which has a little bit more drawn in it. And so the area I'm focusing on is this part here, where you've got the change in level from block B to block C, and the same thing occurs on the next story. So in this case, we've got a set of stairs and this ramp, which get from one floor level to the other. So it's the block C is the lower level, and block B is the higher level, and that's on the ground floor. On the upper floor, there's actually not as great a level change, and it's done with a ramp that goes around the corner. You probably all know the one I'm talking about. It's right next to the interior design staff room, and so it's still a change in floor level though, so you'll need to have a level for that. And so once you have those levels established, then you can start roughing out the ways you're going to get from one level to another using both the stairs and the ramps. And just wanted to give you an idea just about the setup of those things, because they're the last major element, apart from your floors and walls and ceilings as well, which I'll look at with the levels. The stairs and ramps are the other major building element that you'd want to be factoring in, probably before you even worry about openings, things like doors and windows. You can worry about right at the end of all of this setup, and then finally, the more detailed things, skirtings and cornices and all those final things. So in Revit, the first thing I need to do is get those changes to come through. So hopefully, if you've been working in your Revit file, you're used to doing this, but if not, just make sure you get into the habit of going to Insert and then Manage Links. Find the file that you've linked on the CAD Formats tab, select it, and then you should just be able to choose Reload, and then OK, and see the changes come across. And it's turned some layers back on because I've changed the layer names, so I just need to go and turn them off again. So again, by going Edit next to Visibility, Imported Categories, and then in the file that you've imported, you'll find the layers. So I'll just turn those off. So I just wanted to hide the images there. And I can see most of what I need just by looking at this drawing. And so, like I was saying, we have that transition there. If I go to the levels that I've already got, we've got the ground floor for building B and C. So the first thing I need to do then is to have level 1 for buildings B and C. And so going over here to level 1, I'll just rename that as building B. Always yes to rename views, and then zooming out, I'll go and make a new level for building C, which has automatically come up as the name. And you can see then that my level names start to go over one another because they're pretty close together. The level change probably is at least that much. It's at least 900, I'd say. So I don't really want to move that level. And so instead of doing that, or the other option would be to break the tag or break the line, and then you can move the tag separately. But rather than doing any of those things, if you just remember that the size of your text is largely determined by the scale, if I change it to something like 1 to 50, that'll give me smaller text, and that's much simpler when you have a few levels together. And so then we can have a look at these height differences between buildings B and C. And before you even go too far with the stairs and ramps, you want to have a good idea of those two floor areas. So you can see building C is the lower of the two. I've already done a floor for building sorry, for building C, it should say that over here. So I'm just looking for the, oh, here we go, sorry, it's just hiding the level name. So for building B, even though I'm in the ground floor, so the building C view, sorry about that. So here we go, so that floor is definitely on building B, which it should be. And because a lot of these walls are the same in the two floor plans, I should be able to just copy. I don't want the reference plane, so I'll just select that again. So I'll get that wall as well. So using the copy tool in Revit, it's pretty similar to AutoCAD. So I'm just going to copy all of this to make it easier over to one side, and then I can rotate it 90 degrees, go back to the view that has my drawing, and then using the move tool I can snap maybe from the midpoint of this wall here over to the midpoint of the wall that's coming from AutoCAD. Okay, so you can see most of that's lined up pretty well. Oh, I missed a wall there. That's alright, I can get that by flipping it. So I'll flipping, or actually, sorry, copying makes more sense here. So let's use copy. So with a better base point, so copy using, I think, this corner actually. Okay, so that's fairly close to the right layout, and just adjust some of these walls. So that gives me enough to draw the floor. So I'll just get rid of this bit of wall, extend that up, and yeah, so I've got the boundary for most of building C now. I'm not too worried about this area because I'm going to focus more on that when I do the rev. So I might just delete a couple of these walls that shouldn't be there. And so then just remember, if you have issues seeing what you think should be there, just check that you're working on the level that you think you are. It's going to be a little bit complicated when you have those two different floor levels. So there is definitely a wall coming across there, it's just not showing properly in this view. So I'll just check a couple of the settings there. It's in wireframe, but I'm going to also make sure that it's in coarse view, and that way it's easier to see the walls. I don't really need to be able to see through those walls, so coarse is a good option there. If you're wondering why it's showing those coarse walls, it's because in that wall type it has a solid fill set for the coarse scale fill pattern. So that won't always be there. If it doesn't have a pattern set, the wall is still going to be see-through in wireframe. And so then I could copy this wall up now, and that's better. So that's how that wall joint should look. And delete all that one so I actually can just get stretched. So I'll copy this down. So these walls all are just low height walls going around the ramp. Something like that. And so while I'm at it, not a bad idea to select those and just set an unconnected height of about maybe 1500 at most, so that they read as low height walls, and then you can see if you've got any issues with that intersection. And so maybe the way I joined those walls and drew them in AutoCAD wasn't the best, because I wasn't thinking about that transition between the levels and the fact that this wall really sits inside. So the way they would have most likely built it was to have this wall with its inside edge aligned with the exterior wall, even though they're not actually connected really. It just makes more sense. So that's all flush. So you make little changes like that as you just go through and check things. and work it out in more detail. And so you can see again this wall's displaying a bit strangely, but I'll have to check there. I think it's because the floor there is, or the walls, sorry, are stopping at the floor. So if you find that happening, a quick way of fixing it is just to select all of those walls with a crossing window. So I'll just select that whole area, and then I'm going to use the filter option, check none, and then turn walls on only. Click OK, and I've got different kinds of walls selected, so I'm going to have to do an extra step here. Go to a 3D view, and then using the temporary height isolate element, and now I can check to see if any of those walls are stopping low. So yeah, so they're actually not attached, they're only joined, which is what I'd normally do. It's just strange that it's showing. So I'll just check one more. So by selecting it, you can try detach top base, and yeah, so when the detach all options grayed out, that means it's not attached to anything. So it's just a quirk with the graphics there, and I wouldn't worry too much if the walls look okay in 3D if they don't show properly in a view like this. But I need them to show properly in this view, ground floor building C, and they're not. So again, this is all to do with the level setup. Here I'll try changing the cut plane height. First I'll check that the associated level is ground floor building C, which it is. And then to change the cut plane height, do you all know what a cut plane is in your plan drawings? Okay, so you're probably pretty used to thinking about a cut plane with a section, because you draw the section line first, and that's where you're going to cut your section. But in a floor plan, you often don't think about the exact height of your floor plan until you come across maybe a window or something that's not at a standard height. And here we go, you can see what the problem is now. The cut plane there is a bit lower than normal, so it's 1200, and that's the way it's set up in the template, the architectural template. But with the older ones, I think it used to be 1500, and so I'll set it to that, 1500 there for the cut plane. And if you haven't used view range, that's an important one to know about in Revit, so especially for setting the cut plane. Oh, I thought there was a storm coming. Alright, so I'm just going to hit apply, and you can see now there are my walls that were missing from that level above. So that's the first thing, just making sure that between your levels you still have things showing up the right way. So if you missed that, so 1200 cut plane misses those walls, but 1500 will get them. I'll still need to check though that the windows on that level come up when I do those, so I'll show you there's another way of doing that. But that's the first step, just getting the different levels to again show things from other levels if you need them to. And so now here I can see pretty clearly that the floor stops roughly where that change in level starts to occur. And so I'm going to go now and add in a new floor. In this, this drawing is fine, or I could go to ground floor with drawing, because they're both attached to building C. And then using the floor tool, I can here just use pick walls, and I'm going to go just around those main walls fairly quickly. I haven't got the end of the building, so I'm just going to stop the floor in line with that wall. That's okay, but I'll flip it to the other side. And again here, where I'm choosing the outside wall, it's gone to the outside of that exterior wall, and I want it on the inside edge. So when I flip it, if this line changes, that's okay, because I'm not really worried about that line. I'll redo it anyway later. So now I've got the transition area where the floor probably stops in line with the ramp here. So you could either stop it there in line with the ramp where it really does stop, or if you just want to get something done quickly and fill in the detail later, take it all the way to probably where the edge of this other floor is, so that it's a completely enclosed space. So I'm going to take it to this wall, but I'll flip it to the other side and trim it all together. So that makes it a simple shape apart from anything else, just finishing as a rectangle basically. And down here, better join that together. Tick to finish. And that gives a really important reference when you start to put in those level changes. I'll just reset my temporary view changes now. Okay, so I've got the building there that I want to start investigating the interior levels, and so I'm going to do my usual and either duplicate or rename this 3D view. I'll just rename it this time, and I'm going to call it 3D section box. Or I'm sure you all know what section boxes are in Revit. Do you remember section boxes? Sort of? Yep. Okay, so I'm just going to call it SB. Hopefully you're used to working with section boxes. And so if you don't remember, it's in the view properties for a 3D view. You can always turn on that section box option. And now using that box that's come up, I can stretch those arrows so that it's showing the interior. Let's bring this down a bit further so it's still showing the corridor. That's too far. There we go. And so that I don't get confused when I'm looking at that box, bring it up a little bit, I'm going to hide it. So just by right clicking when you've selected your section box, you can hide in view elements just like anything else in Revit. And so looking at these elements, it probably is going to help me if I change that to shaded to see things a bit more clearly. And so now I can see pretty well my two floor levels, so that when I start to put the ramp and the stairs in, that should be really nice and clear in 3D. And I can do the same with the upper level. And there's a good chance that that floor is basically going to be the same shape or a very similar shape on the next story. So instead of redrawing all of that, I'll simply go to the floor that I drew it, or the level or the view that I drew it in, sorry, so ground floor building C, copy to clipboard in the clipboard panel, and now on the paste menu, paste align to selected levels, and it'll be level 1 building C. Check that in the 3D view, and there we are. So I've got a new floor now that's clearly at a lower level to the main, well, not the main level, the floor level for building B. And so then I can go back to my building B, level 1 building B floor plan, edit boundary to start changing that floor's shape. And so now we need to think in a little bit more detail how this floor works. And so using pick walls, I can get the inside edge of this wall, and the top, I think, of this wall would work well, just trying to keep it simple. What often happens though, when you're using pick walls and then you try to flip it, it's going to flip all of the joined lines. So here, I want to flip this one to the top, but I want to keep the one on the left on that side. Or do I? No, sorry, I don't really care. So I'm going to flip them both. Is it going to make any difference here? Oh yeah, sorry, it does. Okay, so the interiors I'm not too worried about. With the interior way you join your floors, it's really just a matter of whatever's easiest. But here, you can see this line is now going to the bottom edge. So I'll undo that. I definitely want this line on the top, but I can't just flip it because it's taking other lines with it that I don't want. So the secret there is to just drag the end of this line, for example, away from the others. Or I could have done the other one, so I could have dragged this one up, so they're no longer connected. Revit now doesn't consider them to be joined, this line and this one. And so now I can select either of these and try flipping it, and notice, it's taken the other one with it. Okay, let's just do that again. So flipping, yep, no, so they're joined permanently, unfortunately. So there's another workaround. If I delete this line, definitely it will let me flip that and and it doesn't flip the other one. So the problem now is that I want an edge here. If I try to use pick walls, it will probably go onto that side now, believe it or not. So I've got it working. This one's where I want it, and these two are where I want them. But I better show you the other way to do it. If all else fails, there is another way. Instead of using pick walls, just use pick lines, or even draw the line that you want directly. So you don't have to use pick walls. It's a good option to use if you can. And the reason is, if you move one of those walls later, the floor is going to go with it. So pick walls, always a good option. But, again, if all else fails, use pick lines. Pick the edge you want, and if you really want it to stay stuck to that wall, just lock it. And it's basically the same as if you've used pick walls. So you've got those different options for joining your floors, or the floor's edges. But I'm going to go back and use pick walls. And now, sorry, before I go too far, I better check the photo that I had there. So the area that I'm looking at is here. Okay, so yeah, so it does finish back here actually, so I've gone onto the wrong wall. So I have to adjust that, but I wanted to show you that anyway. So it's in line with this wall. So that's fine. I'll just oops, undo. And pick walls again, and I'll get this edge here. Again, when I try to flip it, it's going to move this one, so, well, do we actually need... Yeah, it's a bit of a funny... So if you think about what's happening with that floor there, it's really going inside this room at the higher level. Oh yeah, so they've been a bit naughty. That's not legal anymore. So that's a funny one. Yeah, you can't do that anymore in Australia. BCA says no.
Coming out of an angle.
Yeah, so you can't do that. You can't have an inconsistent riser height, even in the threshold. Yeah. I'm fairly certain of that. Definitely in a staircase you can't do it. Just have to check up with thresholds.
Inside the floor will be level, so you've got a
wedge
there.
Yeah.
So you're stepping at an angled step.
Yeah, that's right. So there might be an exemption for thresholds, but I really doubt it. So I'd say that's a no-no, but because it's an old building, they've obviously let them keep it.
No one saw that.
Yeah, well, it was built a while ago as well, even the new stuff. So, so there, we could do a separate floor, but I think it doesn't hurt just to flip that onto the inside, drag this line, and so an interesting thing when you make walls, also make lines or edges to your floor using pick walls, you can still drag them away from the wall that's been used to create it. So I think it's really interesting. So that means that this line now no longer follows this wall, but if I move this wall, that line's still going to go with it. And that's what it should do, because logically the edge of that floor should basically follow this, the inside of this wall. So you can see there, actually probably it's on the other side. It's getting fussy, but yeah. So again, we've got that issue. Good old Revit. It's great when these things work, but it's a bit painful when it does things that you don't want it to. So here, considers them joined. It's funny. It's like they're phantom joined, or those atoms that are connected through space, something like that, because they're not touching, but they're still moving. So again, I'm going to use that method I showed you before, pick lines, and now I can flip this one, because I really want that one on the top of the wall. So again, I know it seems like a lot of messing around just to do the edge of a floor, but you really want to get these connections right, because then when you do the ramp, sorry, it's much simpler. Yeah, okay, so that's it for the floor. This edge has to go. Tick to finish. Okay, so then it's pretty much ready for the ramp to go in. And that's really the final thing I want to show you, just how to get started doing things like ramps and stairs I might look at separately. So we've got there the floor level at the end of that corridor. So it should be, again here, I might just move this floor edge slightly because it finishes in line with the end of that wall. So again, edit boundary, I'm sure you're all used to that. Flipping the wall, and again here, when I flip it, not too bad. Even though these have been made with pick walls, it was made differently, so that's okay. And so then finally, tick finish, and I can go to the lower level, which is building C. Might find a bit different way of naming these levels, because that's always going to be confusing, having C after B, even though C is lower. But first I'll just remember that. If you're wondering, there is a way of ordering the levels by height, but it changes the whole structure of your project browser, and I usually try to avoid that. But if you're interested, you can customise the way this project browser shows you things. And it's an interesting thing to look at, but I just find the default setup is pretty good. If you can get alphabetical names that are in order, that's often good. And so what I'll usually do before I finish the project, but after I've made the majority of the levels, I'll go and number all of these levels so they go in order. But for now I just need to make sure on level 1, building C, and then I'm going to go and make a ramp. And so the width there, I'll just need to measure across that corridor, and it is 2875.8, that'll do. So we put that in for the width. And then making sure I'm on the run tool with a straight line. I don't know the actual riser there, but we do know the level change. So let's go and look at it. So at the moment it's 900. And then the length we're going from here to here is 4312, and 4137, so 40, so it's basically 4150. That's 43, so 4450, 8450. Okay, so calculating that. Okay, so 900 over 8450 gives you 0.1. So there's a roughly 1 in 10 slope there, which is again not legal anymore. Well, not for wheelchair accessibility. I think for general walkways it might still be okay. A usual ramp gradient for walkways used to be 1 in 8. But now, yeah, probably is too steep. For 1 in 14 for wheelchairs is kind of standard. Down to 1 in 22 depending on the length, something like that. You've got to look it up. Okay, yeah, fair enough. Yep, no worries. Anyhow, I've got a rough idea of the slope. So now, in the type for the railing, I'm going to go to Edit Type, and you can see there the ramp max slope is 1 in 12. So I'll change that to 10. And then the maximum incline length is 12,000, so that's fine as well. So click OK. And then back to the run tool with a straight line. I can draw simply from this endpoint here. You might think that's strange, but it'll make sense in a minute. From there to the corner above. And so it's giving me a ramp centered on that line that I've drawn. I'm just going to cancel drawing, select all those lines, and then move using the corner there to pick it up, and I'll snap that over to the left, and now that fits exactly. Okay, so then I've got to be a bit more careful with the next part, because to get the landing created correctly I need to draw this in place where it should end up. So I'm going to go back to just a bad habit of mine. I don't need to go back to architecture. I can get the ref plane tool from here, and then I want to get the midpoint between these two walls. So the edge of this floor won't do it. I'm just going to draw roughly between those walls, and then I'll dimension it from wall face to wall face. So always remember that it starts with aligned on wall centre lines. So make sure you usually want to choose wall faces, and I can go from the inside to the centre, to the reference plane, and then to the inside of the wall again. Click to place it, and then with equals that'll give me a centre line. Probably doesn't hurt, even though you don't really need it. Doesn't hurt to have another reference plane from the corner of the wall there going up above that. So now I can snap to the intersection to draw my ramp. So back on create ramp sketch, run, straight line, and now from the intersection there, cross to the right, and now sorry, my width has changed, so I'll just check that. So 2587 is my new width. I'll just put that in. Oh, so 2587.4. Okay, so drawing this run now, you can see it's a tiny bit too long. So and I've got an error there anyway, so I'll just try that one more time, just going to the intersection actually, and I'm going to keep getting that message because I'm drawing with this corner lining up exactly, and it's giving me a very small line there. And the trick there is to simply turn thin lines on, and if you zoom right in, you'll see this corner here is slightly off, so I've got to just fix that because I've been rounding off to the nearest tenth of a millimetre. And so I've just got to factor that in and remember that I've done it, and I can use move here to snap that corner right onto the corner of my wall. So SE snaps to midpoint. Snaps to endpoint. Let's do that again. Yeah, it's a bit painful when that happens. It's not going to let me create this while it's out by just that little amount, but it also, because it's Revit, won't let me move that. So I'll try just using the arrows, take it to the left and past the wall, and then I'll use move and try and snap it back. Yep. It's a bit painful when Revit does this, but it's just something you have to live with. Sorry, and I can't even select the previous, I'll just, okay, so just have to move it further away. And again, using move now because it's further away, pick it up on the endpoint and hopefully SE, snap it to the endpoint, there we go. So that's exactly on the corner there, well, slightly off still when we zoom right in, so I'll try just with the arrows nudging it down slightly so that it's below that corner as well. And this reference plane, I might try and use the align tool and just get that exactly onto the wall. Usually those little fractions of a millimetre off don't make a difference in Revit, but occasionally with things like stairs and ramps they will. And it still doesn't like me. Okay, so move it further away. So move it further down, and I really don't want to move it to the left, so I'll just hope that that works now. Otherwise I will have to move it left as well. Nope. Just got to move it slightly to the left. It's all to do with the way it makes landings basically. Nope. Okay, just to test it out, I'll do one further away. And yeah, okay, so that's worked. And that's actually a good workaround. So what I've done there is just using the run tool still, draw it over the reference plane that I want it centered on, but starting away from the intersection. It's telling me that I've got slight inaccuracies. When you see that warning, don't worry at all, just close it. So now I can select my new lines, and just using the arrows actually, I'll just nudge that to the left as far as it can go. That's actually a little bit too far. So zooming in. I mean, that might even be okay, but I can probably get it to go a little bit more to the left than that. Probably just being picky, but it wouldn't hurt if I can just get it a little bit further. So the landing at the moment is between the reference plane and the ramp, so I'm just trying to get the ramp over. There we go. So it's again giving me that message that there's a line too short, and this is why it wouldn't create the ramp in the first place, because it's ending up with these tiny lines at the corner there. So I'll cancel that, and that's close enough. It's probably only a few mil off anyway, 0.7 of a mil. So no one will notice that. So I can go back to turning thin lines off, and then again I don't have to worry so much about those little issues, so I won't see them. And so then we need the ramp to be slightly steeper. And so in the type properties, I can just try a different ramp slope there. So I'll try 9.9 and then apply, and you can see here it's giving you a message minus 90 remaining. So that means I've gone 90 mil too far. I'm going to measure that distance, and it's 550. Right, so what I'm looking for there is 550 remaining, or minus 550. So again, back to edit type, and so I'll try 9.5, apply, minus 450, so not far to go, minus 9.4, apply, 540, so gee, I can try 9.42. It's really close, so I'll try 4.6. How'd it go the other way? That's odd. Let's try 9.5. Oh, so I'm going the wrong way, so it's my fault. So 9.38, I'll try. Bit too far, 3.9. I know it seems, again, fussy, but it just makes life easier. So minus 549 remaining. Bingo. So then I can stretch this run line back to the left, and I've got a perfect ramp for that 900 mil height difference. Now, when that changes, I might need to change the slope anyway, but it should be able to work with those tolerances. So I'll just click tick to finish. Have a look at that in before I even look at it in 3D. I'm going to select it, turn off the up and down text, so up label and down label I'll turn off, and then I'm going to turn on show up arrow in all views. Australian drawings, you want up arrows, never down arrows, so that option there for stairs and ramps is essential. And then we don't even see an arrow at this point, but we can definitely put that on later. And then in the 3D view with the section box, I can see how the ramp's working. We don't have any handrails there. Oh yes, sorry, we do. Yep, so there are some. And right, so those can be changed. So that's just a little thing I'll show you before finishing up. When you start working with both stairs and ramps, and especially railings, it's often difficult to get those to come in from the library, because you've probably seen when you go to make either a stair, a ramp or a railing, I'll just click on the railing tool, there's no load family option. So if you don't remember, you can't load those things normally, the way you would normally, using load family, because really they're not typical family. They're system families. So just try to remember that. Railings and ramps and stairs are a bit like floors and walls and ceilings. They're all system families. So to load them, go to open. Don't choose an option, just click on the open button to open any file. browse using the metric library shortcut on the left, and you can go to sample files, and you'll see there's a railings file there, which is pretty good. And well, I'll open it. This is one that you'll all have when you've installed Revit, so it's good to look at this one. I'll show you another one as well though, because this one's got a pretty good selection of railings, but the old one from the earlier versions of Revit actually has a better selection. Here we go. So this is the one I want, this wall-mounted railing. I'll just quickly show you, if you want to get the other bigger library of railings, again open, and you just need to browse manually to the P drive and then interior design and Revit library, and you'll find there in sample files in that folder, it's got the same name but it's actually got more in it, the railings file there, and the stairs as well, there's a lot more in it. But I'll cancel that because I have the railing I want in this file, and so any of those wall-mounted railings will do here. This one's pretty good for what I want, so I'm going to select it and then clipboard, copy to clipboard, Control Tab, and I'm back into my original file. Oh, there's a floating family from the way I copied, so I'll just delete that. And then on the Modify tab, paste and OK. And then I'm just going to click anywhere to bring that railing into this file. Then I will delete that new railing because I don't need to keep it. It's now brought the type across, so I can simply select any railing and in my properties choose the new railing type, which of course is flipped. So I'll try edit path and see if I can flip the direction. So I always have to think twice about flipping a railing. So is it that way? Oh, sorry, there we are. So there's the arrow. Sorry, it's when you select it in 3D, I just can't see it there. And so orbiting, there we are. So there's my arrow. And that can flip it. And so again, with this inner railing, I need to do the same thing. Just because it's L-shaped, the arrow's gone to one side. And okay, so we'd need to do some work to change what happens at the end there at some point, but that's easily good enough to get started with that railing. And well, we know that there's a door actually there, so the railing would stop there, and so I can simply just go to edit path, and probably by eye at this stage drag that back a little way, tick to finish, and that again will be plenty for now. Okay, so you can see there the level change between blocks B and C. And so I do the same process to do the ramp in that level on the floor below, and the stairs as well, basically the same idea. But you know, again, before you put too much detail, you just want to start thinking about how everything connects and get those main connections roughed out, and those main elements, you know, floors, walls, ramps and stairs as well. And then the other thing I'll just mention briefly at this stage is your ceilings, which I showed you last week. You can have a level for, so in the section down, I might have a look and see when I bring that section, the crop region out, there's the whole building. And not all my walls go to my upper level, so I'll fix that first. Again, back in my, well, I'll make a new default 3D view. Okay, so again, just showing the quick method before, selecting all the walls, going to filter, turning off everything except walls. If it gives you this issue where you've got different wall types selected, there's something that used to be not an issue, But what you can then do, if you only have a couple of wall types, is just select one, right click and then select all instances in entire project. And there we are. I can see now that the top constraint for those walls is different, and I can set them all to level 1 CL. And then again, I'll just select one of my other wall types, the 250 wall, right click, select all instances in entire project, and again set the top constraint for all of those to level 1 CL. There we go, that's much better. And that'll help a lot when I go to make the ceilings now. And so here you may have, in fact I'd say you almost definitely would have ceiling joists that span across some of these rooms. For your purposes, you can just treat each room as though it has a separate ceiling. And so I've got a ceiling level. Looking at the photos, we can see there probably isn't a drastic level change in the ceiling. Okay, so this ceiling level is probably consistent between the buildings. You can see as it is up there. So for now we can just assume it's all at the same height. And if it's not, it's easy to separate them later anyway. So to get started on the ceilings, if you go to a ceiling plan. So this is where you need to customise Revit a little bit if you're using levels for your ceilings. Because when you open the level 1 ceiling level floor plan, you won't see anything. If you open the level 1 building B floor plan, for example, you'll see your walls. But then if you go to make a ceiling, by clicking on the ceiling tool, it's probably best, if you could use automatic ceiling, that would be a good option. But here it's probably best to go to sketch ceiling, and then manually, for the level, change that to level 1 CL, and then set the height offset from level to 0. Okay, so that way the ceiling is on the ceiling level with no offset, so 0 means it's sitting right at the height of that level. And here again I can use pick walls if possible to just pick those boundaries, so these ceilings with those enclosed rooms should be nice and easy to do, because they just should be sitting inside those walls hopefully. Tick to finish. Here you have a well, it's not a bulkhead, it's a it's really a head above the a wall head above the opening, so that wall needs to be broken and to have an opening put into it later on. So this here would be a separate ceiling again, so I can again just go to make another ceiling inside that area, and you can see it's now, even when I go to sketch ceiling, gone back to the level that I'm drawing in, level 1 building B. So you just need to keep checking that and make sure it's on level 1 CL. And again with pick walls, I can pick the inside edges of this wall. It's up to you if you want to try and follow things like the mantle, which in reality the ceiling would go around, okay, because the chimneys would go, you know, would need to go past this, or the ceiling would need to go around the chimneys. But again, no one is going to see that unless you cut a section right through the mantelpiece, and if you do, then you can worry about the ceiling then. So again, just something like this, tick to finish. So when I start looking at this in 3D, we'll see now that those rooms are enclosed. And so then finally, you might need to think about what's happening with those walls going up past the ceiling, because there's a good chance that they do go past the ceiling. Now I wouldn't start changing them right away, I'd wait until you put the roof on, because the roof may hide a lot of that. So for now, if you have the ceilings at the height that the wall terminates or wall finishes, that's going to be okay. So that's for the upper level. For the lower level, I'd think about making a level for your ceiling, just because it's all probably at the same height. So again, in my section, Yep, so I'm going to make a level for, I'll just do the building C ceiling for now. And just to really show you how view range affects these things, just to tie it in with what I was looking at the beginning. So, so this is going to be renamed Level 1 Building C, and actually you will need another level for your Building B ceiling level. So this is Building B, so Building CCL and Building BCL will be another one. And oh no, it's not Level 1 either, it's ground floor. Yep. Alright, before I go on, if you have this issue where the names become too long for the tag, you can fix that if you've been wondering. So here you can see the name's gone down to another line, and that's just to do with the way the tag's been made. You can fix that, but that's something I'll show you much later. And so rather than go and change the tag, I'm simply going to change my level names now. And these are just management things you have to constantly think about with Revit. So GF instead of ground floor. Yeah. So I think that's the sort of level setup you'll need. And that'll do. So yeah, so like I said, I won't put the other ceiling level, but you will need another level for the Building B ground floor ceiling. But anyhow, the thing I wanted to show you is if I go and draw a ceiling now on Building C's ceiling level, I need to be in the the Building C ceiling plan. Go to make a ceiling. So again, I'll try and start with one of these enclosed areas, which should be simpler to work with. Go to automatic, sorry, go to sketch ceiling instead of automatic. Then change the level to ground floor Building CCL. Make sure the height offset is 0. Pick walls, and I can pick the inside edge there of those 4 walls. Might undo that and just pick that edge again and flip it this time. There we go. Tick to finish. And then you just need to make sure you can see that ceiling in this view. So I can, if I do a crossing window to cross over the wall and the ceiling, I know that I've selected the ceiling, so the ceiling must be visible in this view. But you need to check sometimes or adjust the view settings. And so here, if I look at view range, click edit, then you can see because of the way I've made the levels, it's actually working pretty well. But the essential thing here is that the top of the view is higher than the level that you're trying to look at. So here, ground floor Building CL, Building CCL is lower than the top, which is level 1 of Building B. Okay, so you may need to check that depending on the order that you make your levels. Because later on you'll know when you go to make a light. I'll just quickly show you. If I try to place a light now, just any random light will do. Okay, so notice it'll let me place a light there. So that's a good sign that the ceiling's visible. Oh, yep, that's fine. Yep, sure. Good. Okay, so that's it. You just want to make sure you can start placing those main elements as well as your walls and floors and ramps and stairs. Ceilings are really the other major one. Roofs, I suppose, would be as well, but roofs aren't as important for this project, even though we'll definitely put them in at some point. And so I better just quickly show you a 3D view of that to finish up. So you can see there the wall is hiding the ceiling. But if I want to adjust the section box there, a good trick is to use the light bulb there to unhide the section box, and even in that reveal mode I can still select the section box and adjust the size of it, turn reveal mode off, and it's back to the way it was, and there I can see my ceiling on the ground floor ceiling level. So that's it. Once you get the model coming together like that, then it won't be long before you're doing the more detailed elements, your skirtings and cornices being the main ones, and on doors and windows as well.